Hi, my name's Robin Lewis and welcome to my top 5 Picasso artworks. This is the extended version where I give a little bit more detail behind the reasons why I've selected these 5 pictures. So I hope you enjoy. Let's go. Maria Picasso Lopez, the artist's mother, 1896. Now the reason I picked this picture out is because when I saw this picture in the Museo Picasso in Barcelona, I was blown away by the detail, but then also the tenderness that is involved in this pastel piece. And what really shook me was the fact that Picasso was 15 at the time. During this stage of his development, his family was really important. It was his father that mainly pushed him to develop his artistic style. But there's a beautiful quote that Picasso says that when I was a child, my mother said to me, "If you become a soldier, you'll be a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope." Instead, I became a painter and wound up as Picasso. It's interesting to note that Picasso moved away from realism in this style. It's almost like this was during his academic stage of his art, and gradually over time he began to find his own voice and develop his own styles. And of course that's the Picasso that we know and love. But I always think back to this one and the fact that he had such ability. So the Old Guitarist, 1903. This is from Picasso's Blue period. Picasso was starting to move between Barcelona and Paris at the time and was really interested in the beggars and the prostitutes and the poor families he saw in Paris. That and the fact that he'd lost a very close friend to suicide, I think is what kind of spurred him on into this Blue period, where there was a very minimal use of colour. Picasso was clearly struck by the melancholy mood of the poorer society in Paris at that time. His artworks were also inspired by El Greco. Picasso was in particular drawn towards El Greco's elongated figures and necks and faces, and Picasso was really interested in that, and you can clearly see that here in the Old Guitarist. And interestingly enough, I picked out a picture from the Blue period, strangely, which has a little bit of colour in it, because that was Picasso, I think, moving from the Blue period into the Rose period that followed. Sort of the changing of the colour, the changing of the guard, so to speak. The Three Musicians, 1921. This painting hangs in MoMA in New York. Never been, would love to go. One of the main things I think about this is the fact that it's 1921, so thinking about it, it's come just after the First World War. The cubism that Picasso had done before the war with George Braque was very much about rejecting a conventional single viewpoint, and the artwork was quite technical in that sense, and it often had a muted palette. After the war, I think that basically Picasso started to try and combine cubism with traditional subject matter in a post-war France. There is certainly a fun and vibrant feel to this picture, and I have used it when teaching art to younger children. It's fantastic for an introduction to cubism, thinking about musicians and thinking about colours and shape. Just on that note, if you ever are interested in teaching art to children, there is a fantastic link on the MoMA website called Destination Modern Art. It's got loads of great educational resources, including some for the Three Musicians. Guernica, 1937. So this is probably Picasso's most famous work. It's certainly my favourite. If ever there was a painting that was an anti-war sentiment statement, this is it. So the story behind it is basically during the Spanish Civil War, the Nazis used Guernica as bombing practice. And the Republican government, who stood against the Nazis and General Franco's national forces, actually commissioned Picasso to make a mural-sized work for the Paris International Exhibition. Picasso's response is incredible. The whole work is executed in monochrome, and it kind of represents a newspaper picture. Picasso was reporting this news to the whole world. What Picasso didn't do was show the planes and the bombs and the devastation that way. He sort of flipped it and showed people suffering, as the mother carrying a dead child and the fallen warrior and the horse with a spear piercing its side. Picasso here is just basically showing us the devastation that this civilian population suffered. There's a brilliant story about Picasso being in Paris during the Nazi occupation of France, and the Nazi soldiers looking around his studio, and one of them picking up a postcard with a picture of Guernica on it and asking Picasso whether he did this. And Picasso turned to the Nazi soldier and said, "No, you did." Self-portrait, Facing Death, 1972. Near the end of his life, Picasso moved away from painting and actually spent more time doing etchings and engravings. And with the paintings that he did do, there was certainly an element of freedom and a kind of I don't care what you think sort of attitude to his work. He had freed himself from all of that. But that said, he was meticulous about recording the precise dates of his work. His popularity had waned a little as well near the end of his life. There was a number of personal sort of controversies that the press had reported on, and exes writing their own versions of events whilst living with Picasso. I think these things deeply hurt him, and I think with his painting there's an element of retrospect. You can feel the sadness, the illness in the colour of the face, and I guess with this painting that it probably didn't take all that long, but you get the feeling there is an awful lot of reflection from Picasso looking at himself, watching his body effectively decaying in front of his very eyes. And it's a sad picture, but yet a brutally honest depiction of himself. And I think that's why I love it so much. I can feel it. I can really feel it. So there you go. There are my 5 artworks with a little bit of an explanation as to why I like them, what I like about them. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for joining me.